Yeah, so last week we had the issue where the player gets stuck in the ground because it's colliding with the individual tiles, right? So the corner of the player is colliding with the corner of the tile, and then you stop moving like that. So the way to fix that is last week we used a tile map, and using the tile map, we put a tile map collider on it, right? But this creates a lot of small squares that are used as colliders. So instead of so in addition to doing this, we need to make sure that all of these are combined as one single collider. So the way to do this in Unity is to just, you can add a new component and you call it, the component is composite collider. So what this will do is this will take and it will automatically add a rigid body. So first thing we're going to do is on this tile map collider, we're going to take used by composite. And that's kind of like used by composite does kind of what it says. Just makes it used by the composite collider here. Right. And on this rigid body 2D, we're gonna make sure the body type is set to static. Why do we need to set the body type to static? Because if not, the entire platforms are gonna fall. Yeah, if not, that happens. So set it to static, then it's not gonna move. There are three kinds of body types. I don't think I've really covered it, right? There's one that's dynamic, which, if I'm not wrong, the difference between dynamic and kinematic is that dynamic stuff are does it affect collision? I'm not sure, but dynamic stuff are affected by gravity for one thing. Kinematic stuff they're not really. Alright, so they just. So in this context,
my Unity crashed.
Oh no.
Wait. Oh no.
Yeah?
Well, it's not starting up again.
Oh no. Are you on 2020 LTS?
I think so. Wait, I'm trying to open it now.
Yeah, just I'm not sure if this file will play well with 2021, but like usually Unity is quite good at updating projects, even if you're using a different version.
Wait, license issues. Wait, what?
Oh, okay. I don't know why it does this, but Unity Hub just like sometimes just decides that your just decides to fuck up with your license essentially. You can go in and you can just say that, yeah, you can just go into your settings and you can activate a new license for personal. Okay. In any case, like this just fixes the issue we had earlier where your player just randomly gets stuck in the ground, because now as you see, like the entire ground is one collision box. Yeah. Okay, so I will try to not go too fast so you can catch up a bit later.
I think I'm going to go. I need to go reset. I need to go through my account.
Need to go through your account.
Yeah, because I don't remember my Unity account password.
Oh, okay. All right. So okay, now today, right? The stuff I've planned for today is I'm gonna try to add two things, right? That we have here. We have ladders and we have one-way platforms. Of these, the ladders are going to be the hardest to implement, so I'll do them later. But we'll just lay them out on the grid first. So we will right click this grid and we will add a new 2D object, and that will be a new tile map. Right, and we'll call this ladder. And then we'll add a new 2D object, which is also a tile map, and we'll call this one-way platform. Excuse me. 2D object, tile map, rectangular. And we'll call this one-way platform. So now we will go to window and we will open the palette. We'll open the tile palette, right, which is over here. And it's showing some squares probably because I had some tiles there before and I deleted them when I reset my project. Alright, so we're just going to drag this tile in, the ladder, and we're going to save it under assets tiles. And we're going to call this ladder, right? You can just call this ladder. And then we're going to take the top of the ladder and we're going to call it, and we're going to also save it in the same place. And you can just call it ladder top, right? Or I mean, it doesn't really matter what you call it. Right. And lastly, we're going to take this two circles, I guess. And we're gonna drag it onto a tile palette, and we're gonna call this one-way platform. Under tiles. So I'm gonna make sure my active tile map is set to ladder. And I'm going to select this tile and I'm gonna just draw a ladder somewhere. Just doesn't really matter where. Excuse me. Select the tile. And I'm gonna draw a ladder. Right, and we can also select the top of the tile and we can draw this thing as well. Right, and we can go to one-way platform and we can repeat the same. So select the platform and then we can just draw around here. And then we can erase some of it because I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So we now have objects that we now have tile maps for the ladder and our one-way platform. So then we'll go and add colliders on them. As per before, I think for the colliders we want them to be based on the squares they're in rather than the shape itself. Because if we make it about the shape itself, right, then you might get weird edge effects. So we'll go to here and we'll set the collider type to grid for each of them. For each of the three things that we added. Okay, so now we'll go to ladder. And we will add the two colliders that we used the last time, right? So tile map, collider 2D. And we'll say that this is used by composite. and we need a composite collider 2D. And we also need to make sure that the ladder doesn't move. So in this case, we don't want the ladder to collide with the player, right? So we will just say here instead is trigger. We'll mark this as a trigger. So this will mean that instead of this interacting with our physics engine, we will be able to interact with it through code. Okay. And I'll also drag this guy just to try to make sure that we don't get weird collisions when the thing starts, right? So we'll do the same thing for the one-way platforms. So TileMap Collider 2D, Composite Collider 2D, and make sure the rigid body is set to static. TileMap Collider is used by Composite. I don't know why it's not showing the... Yeah. Okay, there we go. It's showing the rectangles now. And we're not gonna click is trigger this time around because this is not a trigger, right? So Unity has a very nice interface for doing one-way tiles, and it's just called the platform effector 2D. And yeah, so for the composite collider, we have to select used by effector as well. Okay, so under platform effector, you can see that this by default, right, will make it a one-way tile, and we'll also select use one-way grouping. I'm not really sure why, but if you don't, you get stuck in tiles. So we don't really want that to happen. Right, so now, yeah, so very simply, we get one-way tiles, right, that we can use. And you can't actually go down this ladder. That's mainly because our player character is too fat. So like you actually can't fall. Like there is actually not enough space to go through. But I mean, yeah, and you realize you can't jump on this as well because we didn't set the layer to be ground. So we need to set the layer to be ground so that we are able to jump on it. I also realized the way we do collision with the ground for jump, right? It means that like if you're standing right on the edge of a platform, you can't jump. But it's not a hard fix. It's just gonna take a bit of time to do. Like you just where before we in our script, right? The main difference is in our script where before you just drew a line down, right, to check if there's a collider, right? We said that. Dot raycast. Oh, we used a raycast. Okay, yeah. Instead of a raycast, we can just say collide. It's like overlap box, but that will require me to like actually figure out where the box bounds are, and that's not really what I want to do today. But just a side note. Okay. So now we have our one-way platforms. Now we're gonna try to implement the ladder. So to do this, let me think. Yeah, to do this, we need to first check if the player is on the ladder. right? So let's do that. And so let's go to the ladder and let's actually introduce a new layer. I've done it already, but you can go down to add layer and you can say user layer 9, right? And I just added ladders as a layer. So you go to the layer of the ladder and you just set it to ladder. Don't know why that doesn't reset even though I reset this project. But hope that doesn't really affect your site. Cause okay. So under player movement, now we're gonna try to see we're just gonna try to check if we're touching a ladder, right? And if it is, maybe we can draw a rectangle, right? Or I'll put something first. So here I will say private boolean, boolean touching ladder. And in this case, right, I might be a bit like strict on where you can go up the ladder from. I might say that you are only touching a ladder if the bottom of your sprite touches a ladder. So okay, so I say that physics 2D dot overlap let's use it's a good collider to use for this. Let's say overlap circle, right? Actually, that's not very realistic that you just use the bottom of yourself. Because okay, I'm gonna draw this out a bit. So I have a ladder, right? And then you have the player character, which is just kind of a box. So you want him to be on the ladder here, but you also kind of want them to be able to grab the ladder from below, right? And you want them to be able to climb to the exact top of the ladder. So instead of checking just this area, I might want to check this line as well. So can I just do a recast? Can I just do the same thing I did for the Can I just do the same thing I did for the ground? I might be able to do the same thing I did from the ground, except that I probably want to make it such that it's from the top of the player instead. Okay, so yeah, then let's do that instead. Recast it 2D. Then I can do it in the exact same way. Physics 2D dot recast box collider dot bounds dot I can't use top, right? Yeah, I can't use top. So we need some reference to the top of the player. So I will say vector 2 recast start, right? Is equal to box collider dot bounds dot center, right? And I will say that raycast start dot y. I want to increase it by the box collider dot bounds dot extends dot y. And I say that exactly from the top of the player. Okay, so yeah, so now our raycast can use that as our starting point. Raycast start. Our ray goes down. Box collider dot bounds dot size, right? In this case, we're using the size dot y. Yeah. And we are going to use a layer mask that's just the ladder. I think more realistically, we might have a climbable instead of explicitly calling it a ladder. But I'll leave people to deal with those problems when like they're actually making like bigger games than this example. So return hit dot collider is not null. So exactly the same way we did the grounded check. And now in our update loop, I'll just do a check if you're grounded. So if it's grounded, sorry, if touching ladder, then I want to just draw. I can just draw a line, right? Debug.draw. Yeah, let's just draw a line from like I don't know. Transform.position. And then I will just drag from transform.position plus like one down, I guess. So this is just so that I can make sure that this is working. It's actually my first time trying to get ladders to work. Okay, so does that work? Doesn't seem to be working. Also, we realize we are behind the ladder, right? And that's probably an issue. So yeah, we're behind the ladder, and that's an issue, right? So instead of so what we can actually do here is we can use the z of the player to push it forward, right? And we can say that instead of z being 0, we say z is 1, and hopefully that's towards the camera instead of away because I never remember. Yeah. Excuse me. Game is. Yeah. Okay, that's away from the camera. Z minus 1. Not a big deal. Yeah, and you're in front of the ladder now, which is probably what you want. And you still collide with everything nicely. Because 2D collider just doesn't care about all the 2D collider mechanics just don't care about the Z. Okay, so It's- Okay. Yeah, so we can't use a raycast here. Okay, we have to do it the more confusing way then. We just check that we have to do it the more confusing way. Okay. So one thing we can do instead of doing this is so remember before when we checked that it was a trigger, and this is more like for stuff that you call functions with when they collide with your player, right? Such as bullets, right? If a bullet collides with your player, you want the player to die, and stuff like that. So we won't be using a trigger for this instead. Sorry about that. Instead, we'll be going into the layer. Instead, we'll be going to layer collisions, and we'll be making sure that the layer collisions are turned off between the player and the ladder. So let's turn off player and the ladder. That's here. Yeah. So this is under edit project settings, and let's see if that behaves nicer. Okay. Does it only work if you're right in the ladder? Did I forget to save this thing? Yeah, did I forget to save this code? Hopefully it's not that I forgot to save this code. Going to just publicize it a bit, just to public. You don't have to do what I'm doing. Just need to do some debugging of this thing. Okay. This is another way to like expose certain internal stuff if you're just not sure that they're happening or not. Okay. So player, let's select the player and then we keep this locked on the player. Let's see. Okay, so it's not counted as touching the player. Man, then I have to do this by on collider exit enter and on collider exit. Okay, let's do this by on collider enter and on collider exit then. So sorry about that. Let's go back to our game object. Phew. On collider enter and on collider exit does not use the same thing. Not do the same way, right? Because I want to have it such that the center is only the center collides with this object. I thought this would work. Welcome to platformer making. Or does it not work with raycast? I'm gonna draw physics 2D dot raycast. Okay, let's draw a line. So debug dot draw line raycast start dot y comma vector 2 dot down minus box collider times box collider dot bounce dot size dot y. Recast start not dot y. Okay, so I'm just gonna draw a line that's supposed to be this collision. Line's not drawn, okay. So that's the main problem, the line's just not drawn. But with draw line. Okay. Let me see if this works if I turn off the one-way platform. Right. Unlock the player, turn off the one-way platform. And let's open the ladder and see if that... See if this... Ah, I see, okay. Yeah, so raycast doesn't really work with this. Yeah, got it. Raycast doesn't work because apparently if you're starting inside the object, it doesn't, the raycast will not detect. Yeah, so instead of doing this, we're going to check a box. We're going to collide a box instead. So, can say that physics 2D instead of physics 2D dot overlap. Can I overlap a line? Okay. Yep, overlap area, and this is going to return a collider 2D. So overlap area, raycast start, vector 2 point B. Okay, so I have to use a raycast end, right? Cast end is box collider dot bounce dot center. Raycast end, and then I take the y, and I subtract the box collider dot bounce dot extends dot y, right? And that should give me the bottom. Cast end. And so this will be null if it doesn't overlap anything. And I need to give it a layer mask. Layer mask dot get mask, and I'll call this is just ladder. So this will be a collider 2D. And I'll just return if C2D not null. Okay. And let's make sure this works as well. Yeah, now it works, right? Now we see that when the player is right over the ladder, right, we see that this box is checked. Okay. That was a lot of small debugging. So now I'm going to get rid of this to debug, and I'm going to get rid of this thing as well. Okay, so now our behavior of the player, right, is going to be a bit more complicated because there are separate states for movement and for being on a ladder, right? So there's a state where you're moving, right? And when you're moving, you're actually affected by gravity. When you're on a ladder, you're not actually affected by gravity, right? Just the main difference. And also when you're on a ladder, you can move up and down, but not left and right unless you jump off, right? So those will be our ladder mechanics. So let's implement those right now. So what we can do is, okay, first we will have a private boolean, right? Excuse me. Private, excuse me. Private boolean bool is on ladder. And we'll use this to keep track if you're on a ladder or not, and it should start at false. Okay, so we're going to have a big if around all these things are no movements, right? So actually this goes before. So I will say that if it's not on ladder, right? So exclamation mark is on ladder, right? So it's not on ladder. Then all these yeah, and then I will just wrap all the stuff we had before, right? With on this if, and then I will say else, right? So I'll say else, this is our ladder mechanics. So okay, so we need some way to make sure that we are on a ladder, right? And some way to be able to start climbing ladders. So the two conditions to start climbing a ladder is you must be touching a ladder and you must be pressing up or down, right? So that's what we're gonna do. So if is touching ladder, right? If touching ladder and excuse me, and if you're holding up and you're on a ladder, you should also start climbing it, right? So is on ladder. Sorry, is touching ladder and you have to get the axis, right? Get the vertical axis. So get axis, input dot get axis. Dot. I'll just get the raw axis. This axis will be called vertical. And if this input is not equal to 0, right, then I will say that actually this should go below the gravity factor change. I will say that instead what we're going to do is we're going to have is on ladder be true, right? And Okay. So, and the transition back from being on a ladder, right, to not being on a ladder is if you press jump, pretty much. Or if you're not touching ladder, right? So if you're not touching the ladder anymore, you're off the ladder. So the other condition is if you pressed the jump button. So input dot get button, and it's just jump. Or right, if you press the jump button, so we say that we set is on ladder to false. So first ladder mechanic we're going to implement is we're going to make sure that there's no gravity on the ladder. So there's just rigid body dot gravity scale is equal to 0. Okay, and let's just check that that works, right? We can hold on to ladders and oops. Okay. Let me do this one. Let me do this without the one with platform so I can just do a check. Yeah. Okay. So now when I press space, you're jumping down the ladder. Yeah. Yeah, so now you can't move. And when I press space, you're jumping off the ladder instead. I should make sure that when you press space, you're also doing some form of jumping. Right? You're also jumping off. So actually here I'm going to replace this. I'm going to put this condition in a variable, right? So bool jump, oops, jump pressed is equal to input dot get button jump. So and then I'm going to replace this condition with jump pressed. Am I going too fast, by the way? Yeah, am I going too fast, by the way? Like, please let me know if you need me to stop or anything. Or explain anything that I'm doing. Is on ladder is false. Okay, and then I'm gonna say that if jump pressed, right, then I don't actually care if you're on the ground or not, right? Because you can always jump off a ladder. So then I'm going to say that uh velocity.y, it should be set to the jump speed. Oops, excuse me. Velocity. Oh, I have to get the rigid body's velocity again. Okay, can I abstract out this code? Right. So can I abstract out this code? I can, right? I can take out this code and I can put it on top. So because both of them are gonna adjust the velocity, so I don't want them to. I don't want them to both be. I don't want to have to repeat this code, right? That does, and I don't want to have to repeat the code that sets the velocity as well at the end. And I can just give these Vx and Vy values to the animator. I think it's fine as well, right at the end. Okay, so now if jump pressed, yeah, now I can set the velocity, right? Dot y is equal to jump speed. All right, so a few things that we did, and I kind of jump like back and forth around the code. So I just want to check if you guys need me to be a bit slower about this. Please let me know. Are you guys following? I will assume so. I will turn the one-way platforms off again, and then I will just do a check with the ladder itself. So I can go left, and I'm not, okay, and okay. It's going down at the same speed you went down at, as while you're still touching the ladder. Yeah, we also have to stop yourself from moving as long as you're touching the ladder. That's the thing we forgot to do. So before we check that the jump is pressed, right, we can just set the velocity.y and velocity.x to be 0. Velocity.x is also 0. Okay, let's hope this works a bit better. Okay. So that when you touch the ladder, you immediately stop. Yeah, you immediately stop, and when I press jump, I can jump off the ladder like that. Yeah, and now you can climb up and climb down the ladder, but those are things that we can go fix. And if you're holding up and you're touching a ladder, yeah, you get onto the ladder as well. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna add the code that makes you move up and down, right, on the ladder. So there's like some priority to this, right? If you're pressing jump, you should jump. If you're pressing up and down, you should move up and down, right? You should climb up and down. How fast do you climb up and down? I think we can add another. We can add another public float, right? So we can add another parameter because we can always adjust this. Let's call this ladder speed, and I think we can set this to maybe like maybe like 4 as a default, right? And we'll adjust again as usual. So over here, right, now we will say that if actually we'll just say that the velocity.y, instead of being 0, right, it will depend on the horizontal axis, right, of your input. Sorry, on the vertical axis of your input. So get axis raw, vertical. Right, velocity y is equal to get axis raw dot vertical multiplied by this ladder speed. Okay. That should actually be enough to climb ladders. Yeah. Okay. Hmm. For some reason, it's only really detecting the top of the ladder, right? It's like, let me just check the ladder's collider. Ladder does have a reasonable collider. Okay, just do some debugging. So I think there's a way to get it uneditable, right? So, is it possible to serialize field uneditable? Okay, no, you can't. Okay. So public public bool is touching ladder. Right, and I'm just gonna use this to do some debugging. So here is touching ladder is equal to touching ladder. Okay, so I'm gonna log on the player as usual. And I'm gonna do a check. So okay, so is touching ladder is still kind of buggy. Okay, so this might have to do with the fact that our area actually has like no actual area, right? So what we can do instead is we add a bit of buffer space. So raycast start, and we say that we move the X a bit to the left. Yeah, let's move the X of the raycast start to the left. And make sure this is a float. Yeah. 0.1. Let's do 0.1. Let's not be so stingy. Raycast n dot x. And we'll shift this to the right a bit. Okay. And let's see if this like no, it doesn't. Why does it not? So let's try to open the box collider of the player. Can I view the collider of the player automatically? Window analysis, physics debugger. Okay. So if one collider is completely in another, it just refuses to see it.
Sorry, I have to leave
Yeah.
a bit early. I have to leave
Alright,
earlier
alright.
tonight.
Alright.
I'll catch out the rest on the board.
Probably most of it is like trying to figure out what's wrong with this because it's very
Yeah,
weird.
sorry. Okay, bye-bye.
No, as in yeah, so you're not gonna miss much probably.
Thanks for hosting the workshop.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with my animations.
What's wrong with your what? Animations. Are you having the thing where the jumping is not working very well?
No, it's now it's okay.
No, the jumping is working.
When I move right, my character is in the jumping animation.
Okay.
Like
So to kind of fixed that, right? So I was having this issue just now actually, and I realized that didn't really happen now. So if you look at the rigid body, right, it gives you there is a drop down for info, and you can see some info about the velocity. Right. Oh, it didn't reset that as well. Why did it not? Okay. Oh, I should have done a proper reset of the files. Just deleted some of the files I'm not using. It didn't change the data. Okay. So yeah, no wonder it's having this issue. So okay, so we go to animator, right? Uh, and we need to loosen the requirements for you to be in the jumping and falling animation. So from any state to jump, right? Let me unlock this thing. We will change the condition for the for Vy to be greater than some small value instead of 0. Right, you can just have it as some small value. I use 0.01. And also over here, right, to go from any state to player fall, instead of having it less than 0, you have it less than minus 0.01. Right, and that should fix your issues because the physics engine is just detecting that you should be making a very small upwards or downwards movement, like on the order of 10 to the minus 6. So that's why your animations are not really working properly. Sorry. I thought this was automatically fixed on my side. It turns out that it's mainly because it's because I didn't do a reset properly. Okay. Yeah, does that help?
Yeah, we fixed it.
Yeah, sorry. Really sorry about that. So layer mask.get mask should return an integer. Okay. And think of these as top. Okay, so collider only works if partial overlap unity. There's I have no idea about like the physics engine mechanics. This game. This engine, like in Unity, it's like very confusing. So why is it not detecting that you're touching the ladder if the area you're selecting is completely overlapped? Can I cheat a bit and say that you are touching a ladder if either your bottom or your top touches a ladder? That works if your ladder is taller than the player, which I think is an assumption I can make. Okay, so let's rename these a bit. So player top And let's rename this to player bottom. I'm just right clicking and pressing rename, and that works. And I'm commenting out these code. So, oh, that's not how you comment out things. Okay, I'm commenting out this code. Right, then adjust the X, and we'll use an overlap point. Clear top, and we'll just check if the okay. And then I'll just call this bottom collider, and I'll rename this to top collider. I should really have playtested this before for today. Point player bottom layer mask dot get mask ladder, and this is kind of a hacky solution, but we'll see if it works. So return top collider, not null, or bottom collider not null. Okay. And now it's completely not working. It's very weird collision mechanics. Okay, I'm gonna undo all of that we just did. Except the part where we changed the names to player top and player bottom, because those are a bit more descriptive. Okay, so one way I can think that we can fix this that is going to work but it's not going to be very clean is we can go to the ladder and we can actually delete the composite body 2D. And we can actually use the tile map component instead. The tile map collider component instead, and then it should detect more than one collider. Yeah, which should work properly. And the fact that you fall when you go off the top of the ladder is we'll call that completely expected here, I guess. Right, so now when you turn on the one-way platform, we'll just assume that wherever you use a ladder, you're also supporting it with one-way platforms. So when you turn on the one-way platforms, now when you climb up the ladder, yeah, you can walk on the one-way platforms. And you can't go down like this, but or you can go down, but you can't clip through the ladder. You can't clip through the one-way platforms. So let's also do some hackery to make you able to clip through the one-way platforms when you press the down key. Okay, so back to this. Let's enable the one-way platforms again. So let's add a new script to this one-way platform, and we'll just call it one-way platform, because I don't really foresee that we're using the script anywhere else. So let's create a C# script. One-way platform. Let's rename it so that I don't have a typo in my class names. One-way platform with only one O. And let's open this up, and let me delete this O here as well. So this one-way platform, all it's going to do is when the player is pressing down, it's going to disable its collision with the player. So this is going to be very simple. So we are going to keep, so on update, if input dot get axis raw vertical is less than 0, right? Then we use physics 2D, and we tell physics 2D to ignore layer collision. Or we can just tell physics 2D to ignore collision between between this collider and the other collider, right? So between this collider and the collider of the player. So to get this collider, we can just use private fields for this. Private collider 2D. This collider, I'll just call it this collider. Private collider 2D. Player collider. So start this collider is equal to get component, and we'll just look for a component of type collider 2D. Player collider will be equal to will be equal to we gotta find the player, right? So game object dot find game object with tag player, and we'll get the component collider 2D of the player. So that's what that looks like. So ignore the collision between this collider and player collider, and ignore will be true, right? Otherwise, we need to make sure to set it to false. Okay, and actually there can be more than one collider on this object, right? So which can be true normally, right? Normally you can have an object with more than one collider, right? For instance, your object is made out of several different shapes, and you want to have one collider for each of the shapes, and that's perfectly normal. Right, so instead of this, we'll use get components, and that should return a collider to array of collider 2Ds. Yeah, sorry, no bracket here. And I'll call it this colliders. So here, right, instead of this, I will say for each collider 2D collider in this colliders. In. And then I'll say, yeah, for ignore collision between the collider that we selected and the player collider. And if not, we will set it to false. Right, so don't ignore the collision. Okay. All compiler errors need to be fixed. this collider with an S. Okay. And I also need to add the component to my object, which I have conveniently forgotten to do. So, yeah, so let's put that here. Right, and now when you press down, you should be able to phase through the platform. Right. In fact, like almost a bit unnaturally, right? If you're like holding down, you phase through the platform just like that. But that's very nice to be able to go down platforms and to be able to just phase through platforms like this. Yeah. So I think this is actually a good place to kind of cut it for now. Because because we've been doing this for like 1.5 hours and we've been spending a lot of time debugging, and honestly I've been a bit busy, so I don't actually have anything prepared after this for this session. Next week, we'll probably look into some enemy mechanics. I'll need to find some sprites for the enemy because we don't really have good enemy sprites here, right? And in terms of like spawning new sprites on the fly, which is something we haven't done. So those are things that I will do. So maybe I'll do like a bullet bill launcher, right? I'll find good sprites for it, and yeah, we can go through it. So if you have any questions, now is a good time to ask. And if not, I'll be pushing this to GitHub. Sorry if this was like a bit confusing and we went all over the place trying to debug collision problems. Do you have questions? So let's make a new branch. 3. Bring my changes to week 3. Okay. Let's do a commit. Let's go back to main and let's merge week 3 into current branch. Just create a merge commit. And let me push both of those. Yeah, so the file should be now on GitHub. So yeah, thanks for coming. If you have any questions, please ask them. If you have any feedback, like I'm going way too fast, please give feedback. I'm sorry. Like I'm sorry if I do. It's like
Sorry, I'm a bit lost right now. How do you enlarge the platform and the ladder to make it fit the tiles? I'll start there.
oh, enlarge the platform and the ladder to make it fit the tiles.
Yeah, my ladder is at the center, but it's not totally like fit to the grid.
Oh, are you saying that there's some space between the ladder?
Yeah,
Is
correct.
that what you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
There's a bit of a hackish way to do it, and is before, right? We went to this ladder thing and we said pixels per unit is 128, right? And that leaves some space in between. So the first hackish way I can think of is to just set that slightly lower, right? And that should get rid of the gaps. So you click on the tile sheet here, and instead of having pixels per unit as 128, you have as 127, and then there's some, it will get rid of some of the overlap between tiles. Alright, that's a bit of a hackish way to do it. Better way to do it. Let me search for this.
Alright. What else were you doing?
Each tile is 128 big. Yeah, it's probably just rounding issues in the display, and like the easiest way to fix that is to just make the tiles like very slightly bigger than their sprite, and you won't really notice that there's like
I
some places where
think
it joins up.
I
Yeah.
know what's my mistake already.
Oh,
Cause I used the PNG file instead of the sprite. Sorry about
oh, I see.
that. Okay,
Yeah, you
I was quite lost.
should be using the spreadsheet. Yeah.
Okay, can. Thank you.
So yeah, last week we kind of covered the 2D tile map, right? And just to do a very quick like what we did, right, about the 2D tile palette is to do a tile map, right? It's you right click, you create 2D object and you create tile map, right? And we're using a rectangular tile map. Right. And on this tile palette there's also a interface to create new palette, and we just use the defaults for this. There are a few different types of grids. Some of them are rectangular, some of them are hexagonal, right? Because sometimes you have hexagonal grids. Yeah. That's roughly. And everything that we did last week with the platforms, right? With making the platforms, we kind of also did, right? With making the ladder and the stuff. It's just a very quick run through.
Okay, I'll just copy your codes now.
Like, if there's any moral from today, it's just that like colliders are very screwy. Collision mechanics are very screwy in Unity. I don't usually make platformers. Yeah, I don't usually make platformers, and ladders are not actually that easy to implement. So don't take this as like a kind of a ladder's not working again. Our ladder's not working again. Don't tell me ladders aren't working again. No, it's because I didn't save the scene. Ladder is tagged as ladder, one way platform is tagged as one way tagged as ground.
In worst case scenario, you just search for ladder script.
Yeah. I mean, but it's useful to like know how to do these things because the kind of oh yeah, the scene got reset. Okay, I need to don't pull the code from GitHub yet. It's not doesn't have the yeah, don't pull the code from GitHub yet. Some of the stuff didn't get saved. Okay, so let's do some fixes. Okay. Okay, and that should be working now. Yeah, that should be working now. Okay. Yeah. And in worst case, you look for ladder code. Like someone's probably done a tutorial on it online. But also, I think sometimes it's like very helpful to just kind of walk through like what kind of problems you face, right, when implementing these things on your own. And also you might not want your ladders to work the same way that like certain games make the ladders work, right? It's very game dependent, right? Even the camera mechanics, right? Camera mechanics, as I was discussing like last week, right, can be quite game dependent as well, right? In some games, like having the camera be able to go so high, right, such that you can't see the ground, that's not really welcome behavior, right? That's not very welcome behavior. You want to have the camera shift down when you look down, small things like that, right? Sometimes some games have the camera only sync with you if you're touching the ground. That's how Super Mario World does it actually, which might not be something might not be something you really expect, right? Like there are all sorts of like really small things that can affect game experience. Especially for platformers, like the jump. We spent a long time last week just trying to tune the jump properly, right? So that it felt okay, right? So that you can make small jumps, you can make big jumps. Yeah. I need to stop jumping off the the screen, right? Yeah. But that's kind of the reason I go through this, right? It's so much to know like how you do stuff with ladders, right? But the main thing more to take away is like how you do stuff with colliders in general, right, in Unity. Oh, also, we forgot to do the ladder animations. I'm probably not gonna I'm probably not gonna like actually bore you with them. So like by next week, I'll just have them done. And you can just go reference from there. Rough gloss of how we do ladder is so we'll have another parameter, right? And this will be whether you're touching a ladder or not, right? And then these states will also change accordingly. Yeah. We just have another state for if you're touching the ladder, and this will you can enter it from any state, but it will probably just go back to idle once you stop touching the ladder, right? And you have a state for ladder climbing, for whether you're climbing the ladder or not. Which is basically, are you going up or down, or are you just not moving? Yeah. So we'll do that in due time. Another mechanic that is working very weirdly with the way we're doing ladders. If you're touching the ground, right? Currently, if you're on a ladder and you're touching the ground, you can only jump off. And I realize that's a very weird way. That's a very weird mechanic, right? To have. So should just do a quick check, right? For if you're touching the ground and so if you're on a ladder and you're touching the ground, right, and you're pressing left or right. So if touching if is grounded, and get access then I will just set is on ladder to false. Okay. And that should fix that issue. Yeah, but if you guys have no more questions, I'll just be hanging around until like everyone leaves really. Is grounded should also do a check about like the sides of your bottom. Which it isn't doing right now. Right now it's just only drawing a line. Which leads to some pretty weird mechanics. A lot of games also do some tuning, right? Where if you're on a platform and you walk off the platform a bit, right? If you're on a platform and you walk off the platform a bit, you can still jump, right? It's like they call this, like, the official term is like coyote time. So if you've like watched the, you know, those old cartoons, right? You know, one of the things about old cartoons is that if you walk off a cliff, as long as you know, for a few seconds, as long as you don't realize it, you're not affected by gravity, right? You can still jump. So it's like one of those just nice things for the player, right? That you don't actually notice when you're playing it, but you notice it if it's not there, because like suddenly the jumps, it's like, why can't I jump? You know, I was just on the edge of the platform, why can't I jump? Kind of thing. Yeah. So next week will be week 6. Then recess week, I can just like introduce UI, and I think that will be a good place to just stop it, because this thing is slated until recess week. Yeah, thanks for coming. I'll stop the recording now. And it should be on YouTube, and like probably tomorrow.